Recently, Supreme Court of India gave its verdict on the issue of demonetization. Don't you think as a lawyer it's a wastage of time?
If you look at Article 19 of the Constitution, which provision of that law authorizes the government to put restriction on migration?
Why world over it is being felt that the conventional serials we have emphasized in the last 50 years are unsustainable for the planet.
Why do you think there has been instances of casteization of tribes but not tribalization of castes, or has there been?
What is Makoka, MCOCA? If this is a Maharashtra law, how come Delhi police is invoking it?
May I come in, sir?
Yes, come in.
Good afternoon, sirs. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Please be seated.
Thank you so much, sir.
Do you have any symptoms of COVID?
No, sir.
You may remove your mask then.
Thank you so much, sir.
Please give a brief introduction about yourself.
Sir, I'm a law graduate. I hail from Satara district of Maharashtra. I've completed my graduation from IAS Law College, Pune. I had been the student head of my college and was also the topper of the university in my third academic year. I have decent leadership experiences and I enjoy playing volleyball as well as watching stand-up comedy.
Omkar or Rajendra?
Yes, sir.
You are Omkar or Rajendra?
So my name is Omkar. My father's name is
Okay,
Rajendra.
so you are Omkar. We should call you Omkar then. Omkar, you tell me that you have studied law and you did so well academically also. Then why did you not opt for law as your optional subject in the UPSC?
So there were three reasons for it. First being, I wanted to go for an optional that would be specifically different from my graduation, so that I can start it with a new interest. And secondly, sir, I had deliberations about it with some of my seniors, wherein I was told and they themselves had positive experiences by experimenting with non-law options. And thirdly, sir, reason for specifically choosing anthropology was such that it was something which I found really interesting, and also it was as equally rewarding as law was. And also, sir, the material for its preparation was quite easily available in the market.
So now today when you look back, what do you find yourself to be? Good at law or good at anthro?
So I believe it's a mixed bag. I think so. I am decent at both, sir.
Decent at both. Wonderful. Tell me, Omkar, why do we have such long procedure to approach justice in our country?
So somewhere we as a nation follow due process of law, wherein what happens is that justice should not just be done, it should always also be seen to be done. And that is why, sir, there are certain procedural delays. But apart from that also, sir, there are certain reasons as to we still have various colonial legislations which needs amendment. Apart from that, the procedure is also such that we have Tariq pe Tariq culture.
Yeah.
Wherein somewhere we have judicial delays as well, sir.
So what reforms are required to be made on urgent basis?
So definitely we need to work at many fronts. Firstly, as I earlier mentioned, we need to amend the laws and we need to set a procedure that would be quite smoothing. Secondly, sir, we can cap the number of adjournments that are provided to the judges, and the statute should be definitely implemented in letter and spirit. And thirdly, sir, definitely we have the judges to population ratio is very low in India. It is around 20 judges per a million population, which we need to accelerate to at least 50 judges per a million population.
Recently, Supreme Court of India gave its verdict on the issue of demonetization. Don't you think as a lawyer this is a wastage of time for the Supreme Court of India, an issue which has already been settled? Honestly, why should the Supreme Court of India should go into that?
So one of the reasons for it is that this can actually open a judicial discourse wherein certain administrative decisions can be checked and their actual implementation can be thoroughly assessed. And secondly, sir, along with this, we also can have an aspect wherein we can also make it public as to how laws are entirely functional and operational, and how even after a decision is implemented in process, we still can have a judicial reform to it, sir.
You must have heard the controversy around the North Star.
Yes, sir.
So both Supreme Court Chief Justice and the Vice President both are mentioning to the North Star, conveying different connotations. What is your opinion?
Sir, somewhere I do believe that basic structure of the constitution can be called as a north star in judicial domain, because as we all know, judiciary is the protector and guardian of democracy. So in that regard, I definitely feel that we can call basic structure as a north star, wherein parliament, which is also referred to as north star, it can be called as sun, or around which we can revolve our entire judicial process or democratic process to that matter.
So basically, you tend to agree with the opinion of Honorable Chief Justice of India.
Yes, sir. In this regard, I feel that opinion is a correct one.
Okay, thank you.
Omkar, what is black money?
Sir, unaccounted wealth, which is somewhere laundered, which is somewhere not in the eyes of law, is called as black money, sir.
How is law accountable for formation of black money in India?
Sir, if I were to give an opinion on this, sir, there are certain lapses of law when it comes to implementation, because we have various laws in progress. For example, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and also apart from that, the certain specific mentions of IBC also take a note of it. But what happens is that judicial timelines are not respected, and also, sir, it is not a quite, I don't know if it's a correct word to put, but there's also corruption when it comes to system. No, though not at complete level, but there are certain factors that are responsible for it. So I think so those can be the reasons.
It has been observed that black money formation is directly linked to the process of urbanization and emergence of metropolis economies. How? Can you explain?
Sir, in my opinion, it can be because when it comes to urbanization, there are certain amounts of funds that are allocated for urbanization and creation of cities. So wherein, if I were to give an example, there were allegations leveled against Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation, or BMC, wherein it was told that the actual money or actual funds that were allocated for building of proper roads were not completely used, and there was a nexus between the cooperators and administrators. So that can be a reason, sir.
Okay. If let's say we look at the income tax law, the wealth tax law, the state duty act, the stamp duty act, all these laws have compelled people to not to disclose their wealth and income, and thereby these laws are responsible for formation of black money.
Sir, the intent behind the law is definitely positive, but what happens is that somewhere we find lacunae amongst the law, and we try to accelerate over it. So that should be that should definitely be avoided as a moral society also, sir.
Which school of jurisprudence has been dominant in legislative process of India?
Pardon, sir, I am not actually.
Have you studied jurisprudence?
Yes, sir.
What exactly that is?
Sir, it is the science of law, and if I were to explain in a nutshell, it is how, why, and what of law.
Okay. How many schools of jurisprudence are there?
Oh, sir, I'll have to brush on it. Pardon, sir.
Any school?
Sir, I know some of the schools, Daya Bhaga law and Mitakshara law, but I don't know if that is the relevant answer to the questions.
Okay.
I beg pardon.
Tell us something about Justice Ranade.
Sir, Justice Mahadev Govind Ranade was one of the earliest social reformers of Maharashtra, and he played a key role wherein a pledge movement was started by him and his associates, wherein pledge was taken against child marriage. And also, sir, he was responsible for heading or for being a part of the social reform wing of the Congress also, sir.
Okay. And what is his contribution in women empowerment?
Sir, as I mentioned earlier,
Apart from child education or marriage?
sir, his own wife, Ramabai Ranade, was a minor when he married her, but he also taught her, and he mentioned to her, and she also gave a thrust to her, wherein she went on to become one of the most prominent female social reformers as well, sir.
Bombay as a regional financial hub is contributing, of course, to economic growth, but at the same time, it is also contributing to growing socio-regional inequality in the country. What corrective measures do you suggest?
So corrective measures can be such that, number one, we can have a controlled migration or a proper migration policy in place. Secondly, sir, one of the positive steps that are taken is some slum rehabilitation project has been allocated. So that is a welcome step, sir. Number 3, sir, what we can do is that there is a dichotomy between the powers between BMC as well as the state government when it comes to Mumbai. That issue can be settled, sir. These things can be done.
If you look at Article 19 of the Constitution, which provision of that law authorizes the government to put restriction on migration?
So Article 19, Clause 1, Subclause D and E refer to the right as to residence and movement. So I believe, sir, that can be the law there.
I'm talking about the restriction on migration.
So that is what I am able to recall of, sir. And I think so, sir, it can also be restricted as a reasonable restriction for scheduled tribe or the tribal areas.
And other areas?
Sir, it is not specifically mentioned in the reasonable when it comes to that right, but I believe
it is mentioned. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Omkar.
Yes.
Omkar, I can see that you are 28, 29 years old. You have just one graduation degree with you and no job experience so far. Effectively means that there are areas where you must have felt that you should have been successful, so far you're not, and you must have analyzed it. If we leave the external factors apart, what are the personality issues which you have analyzed that has resulted in you delaying your success so far?
So one of the issue that I have personally analyzed and I'm trying to work, and I have worked on it at a larger extent, is that somewhere I took the examination very lightly, and somewhere I was not disciplined at earlier levels of my preparation, sir. That is something I addressed. And later on also, sir, there was a tendency wherein definitely there were experience and there were many people around me who tried and guided me in a positive way, but somewhere I myself wanted to experiment with certain things, and that definitely did not go well, sir. But I have been working on those issues, sir, and I believe, sir, I am quite optimistic on them, sir, and I have turned my personality into a positive one, sir.
I'm sure you will be able to do that. You're coming from Maharashtra. Maharashtra is generally known for the agrarian distress, their farmer society and all. Recently, a stress on millet was announced by the government. How this emphasis on millets as a crop going to affect the agrarian distress in the entire country, specifically in Maharashtra?
Sir, to give a personal example on this, firstly, the place where I come from, or the region where I come from, is famous for jawar and bajra cultivation, which are essentially millets only. And somewhere thrust to the International Year of Millets, as we earlier mentioned, sir, it will definitely boost the potential to grow more and more crop, and this will also provide necessary incomes to the farmer, because most of the areas are also drought prone, sir, in Maharashtra. So that can effectively be a cure. And secondly, sir, there is a thrust worldwide on healthy living and staying fit, and millets being so a rich source of proteins as well as the almost nil sources of gluten. So that can definitely be capitalized, and export-oriented economy can be generated from it, sir.
But why world over it is being felt that the conventional cereals we have emphasized in last 50 years are unsustainable for the planet?
So the reason why millets are sustainable and the conventional cereals, as we mentioned, are unsustainable is because firstly, the conventional cereals require a huge amount of water. So that issue is addressed by millets, because millets are effectively grown in rain-fed areas, or the areas which face water distress. Secondly, sir, there's also a dimension to it wherein there are certain aspects of millets that make it a popular choice. It is also low on glycemic index, so it somewhere helps in regulation of health. And thirdly, sir, as mentioned earlier, the cereals, suppose if we talk about wheat, it has high amounts of gluten in it, sir. So that definitely can lead to celiac diseases and other distresses, which is addressed by millets.
Okay, you have taken anthropology as your option.
Yes.
And you have studied law. Tell me, anthropologically speaking, what are sources of law?
So the most important sources of law is people itself or the lifestyles of it. So, for example, if I were to give an example, we as a nation tried to understand the anthropological history of tribes, and from that information we got to know about the connect of tribals with the land, and also the issue that they don't have proper documentation, and therefore a legal recourse was taken to it, and Forest Right Act was implemented in 2006. So in that way, anthropological parameters helped in building a robust legislation. Apart from that, sir, anthropology also helps in understanding the caste-based nuances of Indian society, and wherein we came up with the reservation for those sections also which were in needy. So these are the two things, sir, that I'm able to recall.
If we stay for the tribals for a while, when Britishers reached Andaman, they named islands on the basis of the people they consider important, right? Ross Island, Neil Island, Havelock and whatnot. And now when post-independence recently, we renamed these places on our icons. For example, a Sentinelese there or a Jarva there, how the two behaviors are different? To me, it appears to be same, colonizing.
Sir,
From the perspective of Jarvas and Sentinelese.
Yes, sir. Somewhere, as you rightfully mentioned, sir, the indigenous tribes, end of the day, what is necessary for them is actually on-ground implementation. And also, sir, we have to have an eyes-on but hands-off approach when it comes to Jarvas and Sentinelese, which is quite taken care of by government as well. And also, sir, we follow.
But why their land be named after our icons?
Sir, somewhere if you go by the history of Andaman, sir, those are strategically important islands for India.
Taken.
Sir.
Renaming won't help in strategies.
But sir, somewhere we must take pride in our own icons and values.
And not theirs.
Definitely, sir, we can take icon, and that can be a very good start for building a robust relationships with our tribal brothers and sisters, sir. But also, sir, one of the issues in this that I feel is that somewhere we have not identified the real icons or the leaders of tribals yet, sir. So this is also an issue which definitely needs to be highlighted, wherein the tribal histories must be reconstructed, and the icons that they have should be given the due status.
Thank you.
Omkar, continuing with the tribes, why do you think there has been instances of casteization of tribes but not tribalization of castes, or has there been?
Ma'am, somewhere Sanskritization as a process has become an important factor in this regard, wherein certain tribes thought or were told that if they follow the rituals of upper caste, so-called upper caste, they can be given a certain status. So that can be one of the reasons, ma'am. And secondly, to address the other issue also, ma'am. Ma'am, there are certain evidences where there has been a tribalization of caste also, but those are not for the pious reasons, if I were to put it in right words, because somewhere the benefits that were provided for tribals are tried and being pocketed under the garb of pseudo-tribalism.
Okay, since when do you see this practice of casteization of tribes starting, if you go back in history?
Ma'am, if we go back in history, it has started from colonial times only, because there were evidences where Christian missionaries went or tried to induce a culture on the tribes which was quite alien to it. And as we proceed further through history, ma'am, definitely post-independence and during independence.
But if we go really back and if we look at the Vedic society and onwards, you do see instances of casteization of tribes. There was casteization through marriages, there was casteization through because of economic needs. What do you have to say about that?
Ma'am, there's a discourse to it that the Vedic people themselves were tribals. So it is stated that post the interactions with Aryans and the Vedic people that we have, or the outsiders, that led to the concept of caste, and that is one of the reasons for it. Definitely there were texts of the Indian origin who mentioned caste, but that was also one of the reasons, ma'am. And proceeding further, definitely there were economic and social reasons as to why casteization took place. But I believe, ma'am, the society was quite robust and it was not quite discriminatory during Vedic period, but post-Vedic it turned out to be discriminatory.
Okay. The government has proposed a scheme by the name Namaste scheme. Have you heard about it?
Ma'am, I've heard about it, but I'm unable to recall of it as
Okay, I'll give you a
Pardon
hint.
me.
It's about manual scavengers and manual scavenging. Now do you recollect?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, there was also a very positive point in this year's budget wherein the finance minister, honorable finance minister, mentioned that mechanical desludging of the sewerage pipes or cisterns will be done hereinafter, which I believe is a very positive step for manual scavengers.
When did the Prohibition of Manual Scavenging Act come into force in India?
Ma'am, if I am able to recall it, it was around 2014.
13. Why
Pardon,
did it
ma'am.
take for us so long to have the entire seweraging or sludging procedure to get mechanized, despite having a proper act against this practice, manual scavenging?
Ma'am, there are two issues for it. First one, from ethical angle, we see that manual scavengers are very poor, and poverty was one of the reasons, or is one of the reasons why they practice this. And somewhere there was fear that they might not get any gainful employment.
They can
from it.
always take up the mechanized scavenging. They have nothing to lose except that they would be safer.
Definitely, ma'am. Precisely, ma'am, that was the second reason. That's the availability of proper machines, and also the economy to outsource them was also not quite put in place, and somewhere we lacked in implementation, ma'am.
Okay. Have you heard about green steel?
Pardon, ma'am. I'll have to brush up on it.
Okay, green hydrogen.
Yes, ma'am.
What is it?
Ma'am, green hydrogen is basically prepared from splitting of water into hydrogen as well as oxygen molecules with the use of renewable source of energy. And the entire idea or crux behind is that we are shifting to a greener and sustainable transition wherein pollution or the carbon emissions can be curtailed and we can have a healthier and greener lifestyle.
Okay. There was a proposed Jan Vishwas bill in the parliament which hasn't yet been passed. What was it about, if you remember?
Ma'am, I have a cursory understanding of it, but I am not sure if that is it.
It pertained to the decriminalization of certain offences.
Ma'am, I'll have to study more on it.
Okay, anyway, thank you, Omkar.
Thank you, ma'am.
Omkar, why Operation Dost is in news?
Sir, I am unable to recall it, sir. I'll have to.
Not a problem. What are the outstanding issues between India and China?
So there are multiple issues for that matter. At strategic level, there are border issues that we face. Also, when it comes to the water resources, there is an issue with the Brahmaputra waters. Thirdly, sir, there's an issue with the string of pearls policy of China and the way it is trying to encircle India. Fourthly, sir, at infrastructural level also, the Belt and Road Initiative of China is something that we are worried.
Okay. Do you think our growing proximity with US is actually helping us with respect to China, or it is actually making it more difficult to coexist with China?
So with respect to China, definitely somewhere it has took a strain in our ties. That is because China is also one of the nations which is in the race to be a superpower. So somewhere our proximity with the US is definitely not something which Chinese would want. And also the recent rhetoric of Indo-Pacific that is mentioned by the US, wherein India as a region is highlighted, is somewhere also not easily digestible to China, sir.
So do you think India is being used by US for pursuing its own objectives vis-a-vis China?
Sir, every nation have their own strategic interest, and it depends upon how we can get our security concerns addressed with US. But definitely, sir, there can be issues wherein US is actually trying to help us also. But end of the day, every nation wants to secure its own territory, sir.
Okay. What is this term HADR? We often hear about it. HADR.
So can I have a moment to think on it,
Yes.
sir?
In terms of disaster relief?
Sir, if I am able to take a guess, is it relating to humanitarian relief to the
Humanitarian
nations?
assistance and disaster relief. Yes. So what has been India's approach to any humanitarian crisis in the neighborhood?
Sir, it depends upon the relationships that we have with various neighbors. For example, when there
So
were
if you are
crises,
not on good terms, then we will not send any relief.
sir, if the nation asks for the relief, then definitely I don't think so. India as a nation will deny the relief, but definitely there are certain nations we don't have a very stringent or robust ties with, and there are still security concerns that
What
are
kind of
present.
ties we have with Turkey?
So there were the recent remarks wherein the ties were quite strained between India and Turkey. This is because
But
of
still we sent humanitarian relief, right?
yes, sir. This is because somewhere we try to connect with Turkey, and also, sir, it is also our door to various Arab nations. So we definitely want to indulge in a proximity and a healthy relationship with it.
Okay. Omkar, you have done LLB. What is the full form of LLB?
Sir, it's a Latin term which is called as Legum Baccalaureus.
Okay. And we often hear this phrase that show me the man and I'll show you the rule. What does this imply? Is it rule of law?
Sir, somewhere in my opinion, it pertains to the rule by law, wherein certain individuals try to put in legislations or authorities in place wherein they can play by the rule and they can get their things done from the society.
What is MCOCA? MCOCA.
Sir, it is Maharashtra Control of Organized Crimes Act. And it basically deals with the security issues that are pertaining to the
So
nation.
this is, if this is a Maharashtra law, how come Delhi police is invoking it?
Sir, somewhere I don't know if it's a model legislation, but somewhere also there are specific provisions wherein the other states can frame their laws according keeping a model law in place. That might be the reason, sir. for that.
Okay, my final question to you, you like watching stand-up
Yes.
comedy. Now, many people feel that in these stand-up comic acts, generally stereotyping is done of communities and individuals. They are shamed based on how they look and so on. So when you watch these shows, how do you say it? Like you are not concerned with these things, or these things do come into your mind?
Definitely, sir. In that regard, insult comedy or roast comedy for that matter should be something that should not and never be favored, because I believe there's a thin line of distinction between what we call as sarcasm and what we call as insensitivity. So that should never be preached.
But
sir.
who will draw that line? The government, the stand-up comic, the audience, who?
Sir, if we go by the Indian penal laws, section 153A deals with the acts or the statements that can incite differences or enmity amongst the nation, the people within the society. And there's also, sir, section 298 for it, which tackles hate speech also, sir. Sir, effective implementation of those sections can help to curb it.
So you support like maybe invoking a case of sedition against a stand-up comic if he says something which is not right.
Sir, the sedition law or the Supreme Court judgment, if we go, the guidelines are very specific. So, if there is an incitement of hatred to overthrow the lawfully elected government, then only it can come in that arena. But definitely, it should not be.
Suppose the person has meant it as a joke, but somebody who was listening to it has taken it seriously. Then
No.
what to do?
No, sir. Then I don't think so that sedition law should be invoked, because the notions of national security.
Does freedom of speech and expression has within it the freedom to offend?
No, sir, never. It should not, because someone else's right should never be other person's liabilities.
Okay, thank you. So,
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Shankar. It was nice talking to you. Your interview is over. You may
Thank
go
you
now.
so much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, ma'am. May I come in, sir?
Come in. Sit down. So, Omkar, this is your first interview at the UPSC?
Yes, sir.
First. And which attempt is this?
So this is my 6th attempt.
6th attempt. Okay. So, how was your experience today?
Sir, I'm definitely going to carry a handkerchief with me. And sir, about the experience, I was not quite assessing myself. I was just going with the flow.
Okay. Okay. You are a wonderful candidate, I must tell you. You are a wonderful candidate for the civil services. And basically, it's a test of your personality. And personality is tested only by asking questions and trying to understand you as a person, what kind of person you are. So whether you are a person of integrity or not, whether your views are very balanced or not, whether you are firm in your opinion or not, isn't it? So these are this thing, whether you are a patient listener, listen to the questions, answers in a crisp manner, you have been able to appreciate the central theme of the question. So by and large, it was all right. So only thing is that your sitting posture, slightly you improve your sitting posture. Try to bring both your legs closer to each other and keep both your hands here like this. So this will be a good posture, sitting posture. Then answers need to be crisp, always. It's not that you digressed from the main point, but answer to what is exactly asked. What you don't know, you don't know. You don't say that I don't know this, but I know that. That should not happen unless until you are asked whether you are aware of other ramifications or not. You should say I know or I don't know. Like Namaste. You said I don't know this, but I know that, isn't it? Similarly, on certain schemes, you said I know this, but I don't know that. So it should not be like that. Pointed question, pointed answer. That's it. That's very important. And jurisprudence and all, you didn't know, it's all right. It's good. And you also admitted that you didn't know. But as a student of law, you are expected to know. And the way you said, it transpired to us. Maybe our impression is wrong, but let us share our experience also. The way you said that, it conveyed to us that probably you are not interested in all this. These are almost a forgotten chapter in your career. So the way you communicate is very important. It's all about communication only, isn't it? The interview is all about communication only. So try to pick up words which are very, very humble in nature, very decent in nature. It should not offend anybody, even remotely. Okay?
Definitely.
That is what is important. Otherwise, you are a wonderful candidate. You have good knowledge on a variety of issues. Only take care of 1 or 2 or 3 things. So that impression should not go that at times you become slightly more than normal, that is on the aggressive side. It should not appear like that. So you are not aggressive. You are very nice. And personally, we enjoy talking to you on various issues. And you have all qualities of becoming a good civil servant and getting a very good marks in the personality test also. Just make sure that you stick to your ground, stay humble, stay rooted with a positive body language and a smile on face, and not entering into the area of guesswork.
Definitely, sir.
Okay. All the best to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.